Tonight, the county is meeting again. It's a continuation of the meeting to discuss two items for zoning consideration. One is the TOD, the other is the parking ratio. I'm going to talk a little bit about both. I think that essentially the citizens here in the developments of Eastern Goochland are being played like a piano. We do expect that there will be some tweaks and concessions given in the meeting tonight. Perhaps they'll be taking the nuclear generators away outside. Many of us believe that was a red herring to distract us away from the real issues, which are the parking and the technology overlay district, which is science meeting big money. The Board of Supervisors has constantly let us know that they say safety is our number one priority. Citizen safety is our number one priority. But their actions, the things that they're leading us down the path to do, seem to deny that and that claim or promise. By right, as it's currently defined in their understanding of data centers, is certainly not consistent with citizen safety. The grapevine says that the parking ratio thing is a dead issue, that it's going to go, that the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission will both vote to lower the ratio, that is to allow more square footage per parking space. Most of us in the affected districts believe that the parking space is a deterrent to data centers coming in, and perhaps that's the only reason why they haven't been here before, because there's such a high land requirement for parking for data centers. And the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission seems to have slid that in, hoping that it would be barely noticed, and in fact that's been true. It hasn't been noticed very much, but it's really the only deterrent that we think is keeping the data centers out. We also believe that because it's so important all of a sudden, that the data centers, the owners, and the county are all in negotiations and have already decided where data centers are going to be. There's a constant theme of not in my backyard. And if a data center, for instance, is located in Eastern Goochland at far north of 64, then the people down in Mosaic, Reader's Branch, Songbird, they will say, oh, well, that's not my backyard, so I don't care. But here's the truth. Data centers are addictive, and you seldom just get one. They grow like a fungus. And so do all the facilities that have to support them. The electric switching stations, the generators, the gas peaking stations, the high power lines with the ever crackling voltage. All of that will continue to grow and grow. So if it's not in your backyard right now, that doesn't mean it won't be. That includes districts 1, 2, and even 3. If there's an opportunity to create the infrastructure out west, I guarantee you that that will happen. Residents here in Reader's Branch have been putting their houses on the market at a reduced from market value price because they want to sell and get out quickly. Essentially, that's a de facto county taking of property values. I believe the county is worried about if they do away with by right, that's a county taking away of a right that the owners have. So I think, though, that balancing the two, safety has to outweigh the sometimes inconvenience to the owners, because the owners aren't going to lose their value. They're just going to have to modify how they build so that the safety is a concern. The residents were initially allowed to move in here because industry wasn't, or very few industry. And the county had built the infrastructure with $70 million worth of debt. And the few industries that moved in here couldn't service that debt. And so they opened it up to residential development. And they didn't tell the residential developers that they had to have a long buffer or wide buffer with any kind of protection for what might come next door. And consequently, the citizens in the developments of Eastern Goochland have been supporting the debt of all of Goochland County. But now they have Eli Lilly and these data centers coming in, and they no longer need us. We've become expendable. The TOD is important, but more important is technical safety. The TOD just gives the owners incentives to build here with some protections, but not the protections the citizens are asking for, which are consistent with safety and science. The Board of Supervisors appears to have completely decided, or to completely decide to ignore the safety functions. The parking ratio thing's a big deal. It's indicative of what a Board of Supervisors thought back in 2014, I think, when they added the data centers to the by right M1 zoning. If we're going to have by right M1 zoning, based on the 2014 standards, we need to keep the parking ratio as it currently is. If they want to change the parking ratio, then we have to look at what a data center is now and implement safe buffers, restrictions, etc. for what a data center is now before we would modify the parking. Board of Supervisors is not hearing us. They may be listening, but they're not hearing us. So the by right really does not guarantee citizen safety. The county's interpretation of by right contradicts the intent and meaning of the language in the M1 ordinance, which says the statement of intent for M1, the permit industries which do not in any way detract from residential desirability. We don't see that the Board of Supervisors is paying attention to that clause in their ordinance. Currently, as I said before, the parking ratio is the only deterrent that the data centers apparently have to build here. Now there is, of course, a workaround. They could put the data centers right next to our neighborhoods and connect the parking lots in essentially the unbiddable floodplain lane. You know, we could have 20 acres of parking lots right next to Tuckahoe Creek. Imagine the runoff of that. But that's an alternative. If they kept that, sort of cut their nose off, or cut our nose off to spite their face. What makes it so important? I guess that's the question. And I think the answer is because they're already in negotiations that ignore what we need to be safe. The desire to ignore citizen input is indicative of ongoing backroom, non-disclosure agreement kinds of discussions. We're asking the Commission and the Board of Supervisors not to approve the parking ratio. Let's all sit down at the table and come up with some coherent, safe restrictions that please the owner's requirements to make a profit and manipulate the money and the zoning and the people who are going to be dealing with them, as well as making the residents appreciate the safe place, the community that they live in. Goochland's a great place. We don't want to make that a not true thing anymore. Thanks for listening.